Hi guys, Creative Katie, Karen Burchill here. Welcome to my channel. Today we have a tutorial on how to make an envelope mini notebook. So we're going to use just a regular, this is a greeting card envelope, and we are going to use this to make the cover of a mini notebook. Now I have a couple other videos where I've made different things using the same process. Each one has slightly different application and slightly different steps. So you may want to check them out as well. So I'm mixing deep violet and bright aqua with a makeup sponge right on the envelope. I know when I mix those colors together where they overlap wet on wet, they're going to make a gorgeous purple. And I just want to get a good base coat of color on the front and on the back. It surprises me that the envelope stands up so well to adding the acrylic paint on it. But it really does. And once you put a coat of paint on it, the acrylic is basically plastic. It's very well protected. It makes a lovely cover for your notebook in this case. Now this notebook, when it's folded, is about 3 inches by 5, and it fits perfectly, or 4.5 or something like that. And it fits perfectly it's the right size for a purse, to stick into with a purse. So I have this daisy cluster stencil, and I'll put a link to it. I'm thinking that's the name. And I am going to do some stenciling on the front cover, and I am going to use Prussian blue. I've taped down the stencil because I don't want it to move. And that's just a little thing I can do just to make sure that I get as clean a stenciling as I want. This is Prussian blue. It's just I was at the end of the tube and I cleaned out the tube and put it in these little containers. So anytime you see me working with paint out of a container, that's just what I've done. Now on the makeup sponge, I put a little bit of paint and then I dab it off on my glass mat. You do not want your makeup sponge to look, the paint to look globby on it or really, really wet. You're better off doing a couple layers and going slowly than trying to put too much paint and have it seep underneath. With the selection of this stencil for the cover, I've kind of determined the theme of this notebook. It's going to be a gardener's notebook or flower power notebook, but it really pointed me in the direction of other decisions that I'm going to be making. And you'll see what I mean. So I'm loving the effect of this stenciling. I'm just edging it a little bit with the dark Prussian blue on the makeup sponge. And I'm grabbing my jelly roll pen. This is a size 10, broad or bold, and it is actually permanent when it's completely dry. So if I made a mistake here, I could use a baby wipe and wipe it off very quickly. But after, a couple hours, it is permanent. And I love that. It's bold, it's opaque, it goes on so easy. I'm just absolutely thrilled. And I will put a link to this in the description box below because I know that we're all looking for that perfect white pen. And if you're struggling with what you've tried and you're not happy, you may want to try this one out. So I'm just outlining all parts of this stencil, and adding that white really brightens it up. You can tell from the side that I finished to the other side. And I'm not going to bore you by making you watch the whole thing. So I am just putting plain copy paper inside this notebook. But since I have the flowers on the front, I grab this stamp. It's a Dilution stamp. I believe it's called Doodle Flower. And I'm stamping on each page in Cobalt Archival paint. The blue because that's what we've used on the cover, and the flower because that's what we have on the cover. And it's a perfect match between stamp and stencil. My idea is to keep this as just a plain notebook, but there's nothing saying you can't beef it up a little bit. And this is a great way to use some of your stamps. So one of my latest sentiment packs is Through the Garden Gate. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to put quotes on every page. So I shrink down the entire Through the Garden Gate pack, and you can put 8 pages on one. And then I printed this out on sticker paper, adhesive paper. So now it's just a peel and stick. So first what I'm going to do is just cut apart all the sentiments. Speaking of resizing the sentiments, I made a video about a month ago where I show you how to resize my digital sentiments when you buy them. So you can get them any size you want for whatever size page you're working on. So talk about peel and stick. And again, I won't make you watch all of this, but I'm just peeling it off and I'm putting a quote on each page. And they're all garden flower quotes. And yet they're still just a regular notebook with lots of room to write whatever in. And on the pages, I'm not doing anything too finicky, too precious, too involved. But that doesn't mean that it can't be cute and have some interest in each page. So I grabbed my Sakura jelly roll pens and I decide to outline all of the sentiments to make them stand out. And I chose a glitter pen, and I haven't used these glitter pens in probably 2 years, and they work. They still work. So, kudos. I'm always a little nervous when you don't use your stuff if it's going to be usable when you get around to it. Now, while I like the shine that this adds and the detail, what I didn't realize until I was just about done is there's you can kind of see through it on the other side of the page. It didn't really bleed through, but you can see it. So I may, if I was doing this again, I may either use thicker paper or just not outline them to avoid that. In the end, I do something else and it kind of minimizes the see-through part. And it's a notebook. Now I'm on the inside of the cover, and instead of using the Prussian blue, I'm going to use white. So that's going to give a very different effect than the cover. So it's going to be the same, but different. And I'm following the same thing. I'm putting, I may go over it a couple times. Less is more. Very little paint. You don't want it wet and globby. Build up the color layer. The other thing when you're using a makeup sponge, don't press down really hard because if you have a lot of paint build up inside the sponge, it will potentially bleed under. So very different effect. So I'm grabbing the makeup brush and I'm using black archival or cobalt, I'm not sure, or probably a combination of two, and just edging it. Loving these makeup brushes for blending ink. And I'm keeping my surface clean because I'm putting the blank pages on. I'm using multiple surfaces. And the edging continues. Now I'm using archival ink because it's permanent when it's dry. If you were using distress ink, you have to remember if you're going to add any wet medium afterwards, it may reactivate. So there I'm pointing out that you can see through where I outlined the sentiments. It's not horrible, but next time I will do something different to avoid that. I'm positioning it to meet the spine using some bulldog clips to hold it in place. Flip it over. I'm just grabbing my stapler and I'm going to staple right onto the spine. You could use an elastic as I'm showing here. I don't have any fancy elastic colored ones. You could also tie a string around it to hold the signature in place. You could stitch it with a sewing machine. You could stitch it by hand. I'm doing it the easiest way possible with a stapler. We have a pocket on the front. You could put a gift card in here if you were gifting this notebook to someone. Or you could put other little goodies for them. Going to add a sentiment on here. This one was actually out of paper, not the peel and stick. So I'm just going to use glue to glue this down. And then there's a flap on the back as well, or pocket. Just outlining the sentiments that I've added to the front and back inside cover. And outlining it as well. The Secura glaze is wonderful. It's bold, it's dimensional, it's glossy. But remember, you need to give it a little bit of time to let it dry before you close the book or turn the page. I think you could use this as an alternative to a greeting card or gift card holder. I think they would make a nice little gift, and you can put sentiments in there that are perfect for the person that you're giving it to. So right about here, I was thinking I was done, and actually a day had gone by and I was starting to edit this video, and I realized that it maybe I could do something else for those white pages. So I decided to grab that cobalt blue archival ink and the makeup sponge, and I not only edge, I end up going over the entire page with the blue, making the pages kind of a soft bluish tint and tone to it. You can't pick up a whole lot of it on the camera, but it just added a little extra something something to those inside pages. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you give this a try. It's a fun little project and a way to use your mixed media and art journaling techniques in a very simple way. Bye for now.